Well, let's discuss this with Hassan El-Tayyab. He's the Legislative Director for Middle East Policy at Friends Committee on National Legislation, and he joins us from Washington, D.C. Hassan, it's really good to speak to you. You recently published an article earlier this month, and in it you wrote, "The United States cannot turn a blind eye to this unfolding catastrophe," referring, of course, to the Israeli blockade. You've called for the U.S. Congress to take action. Are you optimistic this will actually happen?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. We are reaching an absolute boiling point right now in Gaza. May 2 marks 2 months of no humanitarian aid getting into the Gaza Strip. That means no food, no water, no medicine, no electricity, and millions of civilians are being plunged into an absolute humanitarian catastrophe. And if nothing changes, we could see a catastrophic famine where tens of thousands of people die. This is unconscionable, it's immoral, and needs to stop immediately. Congress needs to do more. There are a growing number of House members and senators calling for unfettered aid access. We just saw Representative Carbajal and Barra lead about 100 members on the House side. There is a Senate resolution coming next week calling for the unfettered humanitarian access in Gaza, and that's important, but we can't just be using words alone. We also need to see action and actual leverage being used because we're not seeing the Israeli government respond to just harsh words right now. With the World Food Program saying that they've run out of food, with UNRWA saying that they've run out of food, with World Central Kitchen saying that they've also run out of food. There is no time to waste. And what's worse is that this is a completely man-made disaster, and that has a man-made solution. There are 3,000 UN trucks waiting at the border to get in, and humanitarians begging the world community to let them do their jobs. And we need to let them do their jobs because they have been providing humanitarian aid in Gaza for 19 months. They've been doing an incredible job under absolutely horrific circumstances. And it's just devastating to see this. And there is a solution. We need to open up unfettered humanitarian access for Palestinian civilians in need and for the Israeli hostages that are still in Gaza. And if there's no food, aid, or medicine, they're also not going to be able to survive. So this is desperate. This is an emergency, and we need everybody on deck calling for unfettered access in Gaza.
Absolutely. And one does wonder if the United States, Israel's closest ally, can't convince Netanyahu to reopen crossings. What hope then is there? The only other plan that Israel seems to have come up with is to bypass the UN and take on all humanitarian aid themselves. But what is the viability of that?
Yeah, the Israeli War Cabinet has a plan that they've announced to, again, as you say, fully take over aid delivery in the Gaza Strip, essentially creating internment camps, humanitarian bubbles where, Palestinians would be, again, forced from their homes from the north, have to go to the south and receive humanitarian assistance from private American security contractors. Now, this is a complete violation of humanitarian principles of neutrality. It's also a complete violation of international law, and it needs to be rejected. The humanitarian community, many of them are pushing back hard and saying that they don't want this situation and that they're not going to play ball. We'll see how that plays out. But this is another dystopian thing on top of an already catastrophic 19-month horror show that we've seen in Gaza, where 60,000 Palestinians have died. The majority of the population, 90+%, have been displaced, and just an awful 17,000 children whose lives have been lost. And according to the Lancet study and some other medical journals, all these numbers might be a vast undercount if you include indirect deaths as well. So we don't know exactly how this Israel aid plan will go. It seems like the United States is on board, that the Trump administration is on board. But again, welcome news that so many members of Congress this week sent a letter to the Trump administration and the Israeli government saying that they want unfettered aid access, and they even push back on the War Cabinet's plan to take over aid delivery in Gaza, which would be, again, a violation of fundamental humanitarian principles of neutrality. Many of these the pushback folks are giving is that, well, Hamas might divert some of this aid to its fighters, and that's why they need to take over. But one, there's no evidence of this systemic abuse. That's for certain. Two, collective punishment is just completely unjustified. And this is, again, a violation of international law, but also U.S. law and the Foreign Assistance Act, specifically 620I of the Foreign Assistance Act, which says you're not supposed to be blocking this humanitarian aid. So really critical, again, that people speak out. And this is, we need to speak out for the sake of the Palestinian civilians, for the sake of the Israeli hostages, and there is no time to lose. The blockade must end.
Yeah, it's difficult to imagine that life could get any worse for those living in Gaza, especially children in the enclave. We're going to have to leave it there. Hassan El-Tayyab, thank you so much for your time again.
Thanks for having me.